Hey guys, Sean here, and welcome to the F1 Word for Sunday Live. Yes, we've got an interesting topic today because I was a little bit concerned that the channel was getting a little bit repetitive over the last few days with lots of previews and predictions and whatnot. So we're going to sort of investigate or chat about a couple of, let's say, interesting developments over the last sort of week to 10 days. So yeah, a little bit of off-track stuff for now. We will take your questions, of course, towards the end of the stream, as always. I've just seen a comment in chat that says, Jonty or we riot. I'm afraid, and I have got bad news, you are going to have to riot. I am so sorry. He is absolutely devastated. He was desperate to get on this week. He's still having the same issues he had last week. He did send me a message just to say, to let you all know, thank you for watching, and also thank you for your support as well. There's nothing he can do at the moment, but he will hopefully be back up and running next Sunday. So massive apologies. He's gutted. I'm gutted. He will be back though for season start, which I guess is probably the most important thing. That is when we're really all going to be, should we say, at our most hyped? I think we will. Yeah, let's get the housekeeping out of the way. Then you can follow me on social media. All those links are in the description down below. You can support the channel through Streamlabs and through the super chat function here on YouTube. And if you prefer to support the channel over a longer duration, I guess you could say, you can follow me or join me on Patreon and become a patron over there. Do go check that page out, though. Even if you're not going to donate, there's some information on there that might interest some of you as to the future direction of the channel. Oh, I hate doing that every single time. I might stop doing that because it gets a little bit, that definitely gets a little bit repetitive to do. Going to start off, of course, by bringing in my first guest for tonight. There is going to be a debutant, I guess you could say, for the Q&A session. But for now, I'm joined by Chaz. How are we doing, mate? How are we doing, Chaz?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Also, hello to everyone in the chat room as well.
Yeah, just us again, mate. No Jonty. Still got his same problems, but he's getting there. He's plugging away, and he will get them sorted. So something a little bit different today. I thought would be nice just to talk about. I'm probably going to say his name wrong, but Laurent Mekies. He's made the move to Ferrari from the FIA, which has caused, I think it's fair to say, a little bit of a stir among some teams, particularly McLaren.
Yeah.
You can kind of understand why from their perspective in some ways, because he was quite a big guy at the FIA, wasn't he? He was sort of seen by many as the next in line to succeed Charlie Whiting. He's got all of that information to his hand, and he's gone off to Ferrari. What are your initial thoughts on that, mate?
I'm not quite sure what to make of it yet, because I'll be honest, I don't really know that much about the guy. I mean, I do know that he's basically the guy next to Charlie Whiting, his number two, if you'd say. But again, I don't really know that much about him. I don't think as well that this is as controversial as I might get his name wrong, Budkowski for Renault.
Yeah, I can never pronounce his name, mate. We'll just go with that. That's fine.
I don't think it's as controversial as that, because when Renault said they were going to employ him, it looked like he was going to be for the entire 2018 with Renault. From what I've seen, I can't remember his name, the guy who's just been appointed by Ferrari. What's his name again?
Laurent Mekies.
I've seen he will be reporting to Matteo Binotto, who's the Ferrari technical director, on September 20th. So I don't think he is really going to affect the performance of Ferrari that much. So I don't think it's as big as Budkowski being employed by Renault.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, 6 months is a long time. And also, I was thinking earlier, come September, I don't know maybe if you agree or not, or if people in chat agree, but come September, he's not going to have that big an influence on the 2019 car either, because obviously by that point, the car's well into its design phase, isn't it? So it may well be that the fuss that has been made by some people is rendered, I guess, irrelevant.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the only thing he can fully 100% affect is how the 2019 car develops during the season. I don't think he'll be able to seriously 100%, develop that 2019 car, because it'll already be in progress probably a month or two before.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think what's from an anti-Halo fans perspective, if you like, I've seen a lot on social media about Mekies. They're a bit frustrated that he's kind of pushed this Halo through, gone through all the effort with the FIA, and then he's disappeared to Ferrari. There's a little bit of me that understands people's big conspiracy around Ferrari and can understand how this fuels that. But at the same time, if you look at it from Mekies' position, it's his career, and this is the next step in his career. Do you know what I mean? He's doing
Yeah.
the right thing for him. It might not be for Formula One, and it has left the FIA in a sticky situation for Melbourne because they haven't got a deputy race director, and then in a bit of a flap trying to get a new one.
Yeah, that is a bit of a concern for the FIA. But I think from Mekies' point of view, if you're offered a job by Ferrari in quite not a very powerful, but a semi-powerful position, you're going to take it, let's be honest.
Yeah, I think you would, wouldn't you? It's the majority of drivers, or not the majority, but a lot of drivers through history have always said it's a dream to drive for Ferrari. So I would imagine that it's probably a dream to work for them full stop from his perspective. But it doesn't actually seem that long since he was appointed to the FIA. But let's not forget as well, wasn't he at Toro Rosso, I believe, before he made the move to the FIA anyway? So it's not like team is a new thing to him.
Yeah, I think he was at Toro Rosso. I'm not quite sure, but I think if he was at Toro Rosso, then I think that's probably why Ferrari went for him, because he has some experience of how a team works.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one. I mean, I don't know. Like I say, I'm a little bit on the fence with it. I think come September, there's not going to be that much he can really do for this season. There's going to be nothing really he can do for the start of 2019. But at the same time, I understand the concern that Eric Boullier in particular has, and probably other teams have as well, that he's been privy to a lot of confidential and high-tech, if you like, information from teams. And, although we'll come on to gentlemen's agreements in a minute, although there may be a gentleman's agreement in position that says, I won't share this information, there's technically nothing to stop him, is there?
No, there isn't. They can. I'm fine with what Ferrari are doing, honestly, because again, as you said, he can't affect this year, and I'm sure that certain teams will make massive strides for next year. But let's not even, get into what's happening next year.
No, not even got this year underway yet, and we're already talking about 2019. We're terrible, aren't we, as F1 fans? Eric Boullier isn't happy. I think it's fair to say he feels that there was a gentleman's agreement between them that says that they wouldn't actually take any FIA personnel for up to 12 months after they leave their position with the FIA to try and stop all this information getting passed around. Ferrari have gone against that by bringing him in. I think, is it 6 months? It's longer than that, is it? No, it is 6 months. 6 months before he comes in. If teams were that massively concerned by the possibility of information going missing, why was this not made a rule rather than just a handshake behind a bike shed somewhere? I don't know.
I don't quite know. I don't agree with McLaren being. I don't really see how McLaren are so mad about a gentleman's agreement, because it's not a rule. Ferrari can break that. I mean, obviously, if you do shake hands on something and then someone does something that they didn't say they were going to, it's a bit, not of a great thing, but it's not a rule. Ferrari can do whatever they like.
Yeah, that's it. I can understand his frustration, about we shook hands, we agreed on this, all teams agreed on it, but he is the only one that's come out and said anything really about it. So I do wonder if this, and here comes maybe my little conspiracy head in a way, but I do wonder if this is just another McLaren, Ferrari little war of words that they have every now and again, because nobody else seems to have expressed too much concern by it all.
Yeah, they're the only team I've heard that are concerned about this. And by the way, after Spygate, Ferrari don't owe McLaren anything.
That's a very good point, actually. I was going to mention Spygate today, but that's a great way to bring us onto it, because obviously a lot of information got swapped around then, but that was against the rules, wasn't it? That's the big difference between that and this. Yeah,
big difference. And you could argue that McLaren could have kept a gentleman's agreement with Spygate, because McLaren, they didn't have to use the information given to them, but they did because they couldn't resist. And subsequently, that is what happened. Ferrari and McLaren had a massive war basically during that year.
Yeah. Do you think part of that, maybe from McLaren's point of view, stems from that? I know it seems ridiculous that 11 years down the line they would, but do you think a little bit of that maybe is a little bit of a dig towards that?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there are still a couple people in top positions at McLaren that were there. I think Jonathan Neal was quite had a top position at McLaren at the same time, and he's still there. So I think, yeah, there maybe is some, but I don't think it's as much to do with that as some conspiracy theorists would think.
Do you think then, going forward from team's perspective and the FIA's perspective, do you think there needs to be a baseline rule, if you like, put in place that you have to be 12 months away from the FIA before you can take a role at another team? Or do you think it's just, as we see personnel moving all over? Paddy Lowe went to Williams fairly quickly, didn't he? So people move all the time. But do they need maybe a baseline rule just to avoid any of this really kicking off? Because if Ferrari turn up with something that was supposed to be on, I don't know, a Mercedes come Abu Dhabi, there's going to be uproar.
I think there needs to be a rule, but I'm not sure how long you would say that certain personnel from the FIA has to be not with the team for before he actually joins the team. I'm kind of stuck between 9 and 12 months, honestly.
Yeah, I think 12 months is probably about right, I would say. But at the same time, I suppose it doesn't matter if it's 12 months or 12 days. If they've got the information in their head, they've got the information in their head, haven't they? It doesn't really make a difference. That's probably why there is no rule around it. But obviously, you mentioned there Bukowski's move to Renault. That was a lot more fuss made about that. But actually, to be fair, I don't really, apart from possibly this blown rear wing, I don't really see anything that's of concern. Am I missing something, do you think, Chaz? Or I just don't really see any fuss around that anymore.
No, I don't see any fuss around it. The only controversy I can see still from this is, I think, doesn't Bukowski start with Renault officially? I think, is it April 1st?
It's something around
1st?
there, yeah. It's very soon.
Yes, he can seriously affect the development of the Renault. So that's a lot more controversial than Mekies going to Ferrari.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think there's... Obviously, he doesn't officially start work until September in Mekies' position, and Bukowski's got a couple of months yet. Do you think there's nothing to stop them passing information, I guess, is what I'm trying to come to you with there, Chaz. There's nothing to stop them sending an email or a text, is there, from another number? So could he have had an influence already? Because that Renault looks incredible after pre-season. It looks like best of the rest. That's still quite a jump from a team that just nicked 6th in the Constructors' Championship to be best of the rest in that midfield.
I definitely think he had or gave advice for the design of this car. That's no doubt for me. I just don't know if he was responsible for a certain thing. I don't think he would have been responsible for the blown rear wing, but I wouldn't have been surprised if he advised certain areas of the car, what to do with certain areas of the car.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit skeptical as I get a little bit older, Chaz. That's probably what it is. It's probably waiting for you in the future, but it's just probably my skepticism. But I just don't believe a lot of what comes from teams these days. And I think, that could stretch into ex-FIA personnel or people moving teams. There's nothing really to stop anybody passing information around. I think even if Spygate happened today, I think it'd be looked at in a very different way, to be honest. I think it's very difficult to police as obviously technology gets better. So that's my old man rant out of the way anyway. So on the subject of old men, I didn't actually mean for that to lead there. We will talk about the Renault blown exhaust in a minute, but I want to stick with this gentleman's agreement thing. Martin Brundle has caused a bit of a stir on social media this week, because he's never done that before. And I'm going to read you the bit of his tweet that leaves out the snowflake thing, because that was... ultimate cringe, I think we'll probably call it. He says, there are no gentlemen in F1, never have been. It's about delivery and excellence, win or lose, dog eat dog, deliver or move over, fastest, fearless, gifted and great. I pretty much agree with that last couple of lines. I would also maybe argue that there aren't really any gentlemen in F1 now, but to say there have never been any gentlemen in F1 is a real... For me, and I know for Jonty, we've spoken pretty much all week about it, or since that tweet went up, to turn around and say there have never been any gentlemen in F1 is a bit of a kick in the gut, I think, for a lot of long-term F1 fans and some people that in the past, and you're going to see some pictures scrolling on screen now, that you could regard as gentlemen, including, as you can see there, the guy he spent a decade in the commentary box with, Murray Walker.
I'm not
That was
really
a bit
sure.
of a rant. I do apologise.
I can't. I I agree with him. Say for the last 30 years, I don't think there really has. I think there's nice people, but to really say there's gentlemen, I think you'd have to go back to definitely the 50s, the 60s, and probably most of the 70s. But I think since the start or the mid 80s, it's become a very fierce, competitive sport.
Yeah, it always was, and I think the difference back then was they were gentlemen away from the track, but on the track they were, as he was saying there, dog eat dog. It was about beating everybody, and that they were ruthless on the track. There's no denying that. But when you look at people like, and a few in chat are coming and saying them now, you've got Graham Hill, and this is John T. I'm going to make this point for John T. If Graham Hill wasn't a gentleman, Jackie Stewart would have been left to die in that ditch at Spa. You know, he was part of two drivers, him and, I always forget his name, Bob.
Armstrong? No, what that?
No, somebody will say it in chat before I can say it. Bob Bondurant. Actually, him and Graham Hill saved Jackie Stewart. You look at Jochen Rindt, was regarded as a real gentleman among his peers and with a lot of people in terms of the F1 fan base, and still today, a real gentleman. Jim Clark is another one.
Yeah.
There's Murray Walker, who I think was, you could probably say Professor Sid Watkins if you wanted to go a little bit away from the sport. I guess you could say he is still part of F1, but maybe not from the driver's side. There are plenty of examples of people through F1 that were gentlemen in the day, but as me and Jonty were saying, as if you kind of alluded to there, Chaz, probably from a bygone era.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was just the time, that current time period. Because of what Formula One has become and just the massive amount of technology which is in F1 now, it's just such a fierce competitive sport, as I've said. And the only real gentleman I would say that have been in Formula One last 10 years is, say, people like Jenson Button, people like that kind of ilk.
Yeah. I was torn on Jenson Button. Part of me thinks he is a gentleman, but there is a little bit as well that thinks he was a bit of a playboy as well. Does that make sense?
In the early days.
Yeah, in the early days. But I can see that. There have been some in chat saying Felipe Massa. It's a fair point. Super Speed says there is a T in gentleman. There is indeed, but I have an accent, and that's kind of what I was brought up with, so I'm stuck with it, I'm afraid. Barrichello? Would you say Barrichello was a gent?
I don't think he was as much as a gent as Massa.
He had more of a ruthless side to him, didn't he? Than I think we realised at the time.
I think he was a bit. I think sometimes he got a bit childish. Sometimes, I mean, do you remember that thing he did at Broad? I can't remember what race it was. I think it was midway point of the season where Ross Brawn ordered him to let Jenson Button through, and then he was like, "Oh, I want to go home" and all this. And I don't think that's very gentlemanly.
No. I've seen it pop up in chat a couple of times. There is a picture coming up that's, quite a strong image, actually, of a man who received the George Medal for getting out of his car to try and save Roger Williamson, and that was David Purley. Anybody who says that's not a gentlemanly act when you consider some of the drivers we've had in the past that are not and will never be gentlemen and could never argue that they are, it's a little bit of a kick for people like him. Do you know what I mean? And it does bug me, and it's one of those tweets where I understand. I think he will probably regret the never has been line. You'll never get that from Martin Brundle. He'll never ever turn around and say I regret something, because that's not who he is. I think he'll regret that line, if I'm being completely honest. But the rest of the tweet, can't really argue with it. I mean, I can't. Possibly Daniel Ricciardo now, could we say? Or is he just a personality?
No, he's a personality.
He's probably the closest thing in terms of drivers we've got now to being a gentleman, isn't he?
Maybe Bottas?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, he's not a... That's a Finnish thing. Maybe. I might ask TK about that one day. Whether it's just Finn's a gentleman. But Yeah, just is there anybody you could think of though that really? Obviously, I've gone over some of the older ones, and you can see there. Brabham is another one who I haven't mentioned, who was a real gent. Is there anyone you could think of that maybe proves Martin Brundle wrong? I guess we could say.
Um, well, Sterling Moss, that's
Yeah,
one. Surtees,
yeah,
Tony Brooks, late 50s,
yeah.
early
Tony Brooks,
60s.
yeah,
Um, but again, it's from that exclusive time period where I think the drivers cared a lot more for each other than they did now because the safety back in the 50s and 60s was so poor. But I do think with that tweet, I think some part of it might be misinterpreted because I think he means more personnel and
yeah,
teams rather than drivers. Because I'd have to say, throughout the entire history of F1, except maybe a few of the designers, say like a Colin Chapman or someone like that, I wouldn't say there's been any real gentlemen on that side, except say Frank Williams.
yeah. I would have said Frank Williams till I watched the Williams film, and now I'm sort of like, oh, okay. It's definitely another side to it that we don't get to hear a lot about. It's interesting to say Colin Chapman. I'm not going to go into that today because that could be one for the future when we've got Jonty on, because we've got some strong opinions on Colin Chapman between us. TKF1 says Finns are pretty modest, which is a trait of gentlemen. So there you go. TK confirming there that all Finns are gentlemen. He's going to kill me for that. But yeah, I think it was probably, I was just going to say actually, it was probably more aimed at personnel, but this is the problem with social media, I guess, isn't it? You can't really get what you're trying to say out there quite as easily. So, I mean, it's probably going to get blown out of proportion as things tend to do, but it's Martin Brundle. I think part of me as well, again, with that sceptical head on, thinks he's done that deliberately to get us talking just in time for the season, stir things up a little bit, because he's been fairly quiet through the winter. So he's probably just trying to get his name back in people's minds again. I am a big fan of Martin Brundle, and actually Jonty said, and I tend to agree, before that tweet, I would have said that he was one of the gentlemen of F1.
Who, Martin Brundle?
Yeah, from his driving days more than he is now. I think he just tries to cause a bit of trouble now.
I'm not sure. Honestly. I haven't really followed his career, so I'm not quite sure, honestly.
Right, I'll tell you what I'll do then. In chat, just the surname of a driver if you can. Name a true gentleman of Formula One. It could be any era in history. Just give me a name. We'll see if we spot any that we haven't shouted out. Try and be realistic. I'm sure you won't be. I'm sure we're going to get all sorts of,
I've got
in
one.
there. But yeah. What about, I'll tell you one actually. Somebody just said Ross Medley.
Yeah. I'm not, that's 50-50, I think.
He's cheap.
Yeah, he is. Oh,
Right.
One driver I would say is Gerhard Berger.
Yeah. If nothing else, he was respected in the paddock, wasn't he, in the pit lane? Massively.
Very respected.
I'm going to reel some of these names off now that are coming through. Gutierrez, Fangio, Coulthard, Seitz, Maldonado, Senna. I won't call Senna a gent. A great, but not a gent. Ronnie Peterson. Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Jim Clark, Kobayashi, Mika Hakkinen, Brendan Hartley. I don't know enough about it, if I'm being honest. I'm just thinking about it.
From what I've seen of him, yeah, I'd say he's one.
Jules Bianchi. A few Kimmy quotes coming through. Nigel Mansell, definitely not a gent. Definitely not a gent. Probably in the way he's dealt with the media, he maybe was, but not behind the scenes, I don't think. Clatter says Gerhard is my hero. Sato, Sid Watkins, Maldonado, really. Jody Scheckter, Pascal Wehrlein. Yeah. I agree with some. I'm not going to sit here and say I agree with all of them. Schumacher is one that's come through a couple of times.
No way.
No. Montoya, definitely not. Paul di Resta, possibly.
I got one. Andretti.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what to think about, yeah. Jensen, Bruce McLaren.
Fittipaldi, that's one. Yeah, he is really a
Yeah.
true gentleman.
Daniel Gout, Jacques Villeneuve, lol. No. Yes, I think we'll leave it there, gentlemen, because I think I've just upset the mods by causing spam. I do apologise. I wanted to talk very briefly about that Renault blown rear wing. How much of an advantage do you think that's going to have on that car, honestly, Chaz? Because I've got a feeling we're going to see, come Spain, 9 other teams turn up with that.
Yeah, I think it's in a similar fashion to the F duct in terms of when the first team used it. I can't remember who the first team who used it, but then by the time we got into mid-season, everyone was using it. So I definitely see a lot of teams using it. I think that's probably one of the main reasons why Renault are best of the rest right now is because of that aerodynamic device.
Yeah, as a team, they're playing it down quite a bit, aren't they? And so are the FIA, actually, which I think is quite telling. But if it wasn't there causing some kind of advantage, they wouldn't be using it. And as I was saying earlier, that jump from just nicking 6th to 4th, and to be honest, looking solidly 4th, is a hell of a jump without something on that car. Because other than that exhaust, initially, that car didn't look particularly exciting, did it?
No, when they launched the car, it looked quite basic, to be honest. But then when you saw it out on track, it does look a lot more developed once it got onto the track. One thing I will say is I wouldn't be surprised if when we get to the Thursday of the first race, so 6 days time, I wouldn't be surprised if a couple teams put in a protest.
I'll be honest, genuinely, I was thinking that earlier today. I'm expecting a bit of fuss to be made on Thursday about that. First of all, how exciting is it to be saying that we've got a race next weekend? But secondly, I'm a little bit like the Brawn double diffuser, I guess.
I don't think necessarily the teams will be. I don't think when the teams if any teams protest, I don't think they'll necessarily be thinking, "Yep, that's definitely against the rules." I think they want clarification.
Yeah.
So then, if the FIA say, "Oh, this is all good," then they'll just go and design it and copy it.
Yeah, they'll come out with a very nice, we were just wondering kind of line, won't they? And
yeah,
it'll put that doubt there with the FIA. But blown bodywork, it's not against I think there are parts that I think you can't blow the diffuser and you can't blow the floor. But I think, as far as I'm aware from what I've read, you can use your exhaust to blow any part of the bodywork you want, so long as it comes out of that box at the back and is straight out the back of the car. You can't have like we used to have with exhaust down the sides and coming out the side pods and blowing the floor and things. So they're not breaking any rules. They're confident of that. It just looks like, yet again, with this lower T-wing as well, they found a couple of loopholes in these rules that were supposed to close these off. But it's clever. It's very clever.
Yeah, it's definitely clever. But one thing I do think will happen is, because of the FIA's recent history with banning innovative aero devices, I see this being banned eventually, like maybe even for the start of next year.
Yeah, do you see them banning it in season? It'd be quite a big change to have to make, wouldn't it, to the back of the car, to be fair? So
I think it would cause a massive uproar if all the teams put a blown rear wing on for Spain or Monaco and then they ban it by Silverstone. I think what they'll do is they'll see how much of an advantage and how easy the cars are to drive compared to what if they didn't have that blown rear wing. And if it's similar-ish to the 2011 cars in terms of how early they can get on the power, then I think they'll be like, yeah, let's ban this.
Yeah, I mean, they ban everything, don't they? They find a little bit of, a team finds a bit of innovation and takes advantage of a loophole or something they've come up with, and it gets banned. It's almost like innovation gets punished. It really bugs me. I've been on about it all winter, and there are things that have come to these cars in the past that are hideous. We've had winglets, we've had wings on the nose. Oh, some awful stuff.
Dumbo wings.
Yeah, exactly. But it's nice to see teams having the freedom to at least try, even if they don't work or they look awful and the FIA have to ban them or have to say, hang on, can you go down a different route? At least they had the leeway to be able to innovate. Whereas now they've just got nothing. And I think that takes part of the spectacle away. And, not knowing what each team was going to turn up with to each Grand Prix was part of the excitement of Formula One. Whereas now you know that the only thing you're really going to see is maybe a slightly different front wing where one of the end plates is at a slightly different angle, or you're going to get something on the engine which is slightly different that we're not going to see. So I just want to see these teams and these designers being able to innovate. And I think that's one of the things that's pushed Adrian Newey away as well, It's just not having that freedom.
Yeah, that's definitely what's pushed him away. I think when it comes to these aero devices and, these innovations, the only ones I would ban is either if they were dangerous. Like, I think the F duct was dangerous because drivers were going one-handed through, I think, Eau Rouge, because to increase the F ducts, performance down the straight after Eau Rouge. I think stuff like that you should ban because that is dangerous. But if it's not a danger and it doesn't massively increase the car's performance to the point where it's so easy to drive, I think they should be on the car.
Yeah, I mean, things like those side pod winglets that we had in the 90s, they had to go. People were driving past fuel hoses and ripping these winglets off, which, that was just too dangerous. So from a safety aspect, I can understand things getting banned, but just want to see designers having that freedom. And I don't know. I am impressed with that Renault rear end. I think to have come up with something like that, it will get copied, but I'm with you. I think it will be banned for 2019, almost pretty much a guarantee, which is just a shame.
Yeah, it is, but we've got used to the FIA's infamous decisions.
I like that. Infamous decisions. Terrible decisions is the word you're looking for sometimes, Jazz. Obviously, I don't want to go to preview and predictions because I'm sure you've got stuff going up on your channel this week and I've got stuff coming as well. And we've had a lot over the last couple of weeks of speculation, but it is the last Sunday live before the season starts. So I guess we do really need to talk about Australia. 4 days till the drivers' press conference, 5 until FP1, which is just nothing, mate. Absolutely nothing. It's been too long this winter. Who's going to surprise us in Australia then, other than Renault? Because I think they will cause quite a stir.
I think the person you should look out for a surprise is Grosjean, because Haas normally start the season well. I think the Haas car is looking very good. And Melbourne is probably one of Grosjean's best tracks, because remember in his first race back in F1 in 2012, he put it third in a Lotus, which wasn't that good. So I think he's the one who you should watch out for the main surprise.
I think Haas as a team early season are going to be one of the biggest surprises with Renault. I think we're going to get quite a mix in Australia. I still don't believe, and I said it constantly last week, and I've said it in videos, I don't believe Mercedes are a second clear. I don't know. I think I'm saying it more out of hope than anything, to be honest.
Yeah.
But, I think it is going to be closer than we saw in testing, but I think Renault and Haas are going to surprise. What about McLaren? I know I've had a lot of flack in the comments from videos about how I seem to be anti-McLaren because I had an opinion that was different to somebody who is obviously a bit fanboyish when it comes to McLaren. Let's not get into that one again. Thank you for jumping in on that, by the way, Charles. I do appreciate that. But I don't know. There's a little bit of me. I still think 5th is achievable for them this season, but I think pre-Spain, they're probably going to struggle quite a bit.
Yeah, I do. And I've seen people saying that McLaren still will get 4th. And I've even seen some people saying they'll easily get 4th. I don't think that. I think at the start of the year they're going to struggle, because I don't think that car is developed enough to start the season quickly right up there with Renault. I think you're going to have to wait until Spain at the earliest to see McLaren starting to put some consistency together and actually put together results where you can look at and say, they're back more towards where they need to be. But I don't see how McLaren are going to be that great in the first 4 races.
I feel the same. There's a lot of people saying, we haven't seen what they can do in testing, but we've not seen what they can do in testing because of their reliability. And whichever way they try to play it down, the truth is they've had reliability issues. They will be behind when they get to Australia, whatever upgrades they bring to the car. So I think a lot of McLaren's season, although I think they will be in the fight for 4th, a lot of it comes down to Van Dorn. We know what Alonso can do. You would say that out of that midfield, he's probably one of, if not the best driver of the lot of them. So he will drag that McLaren round. We've seen in the past he's capable of doing that with terrible cars. Ferrari 2012, for example. But if Van Dorn is consistent and, gets going once that car's up to full speed, then they can challenge. But I just think when you look at Ocon and Perez as teammates and Sainz and Hülkenberg as teammates, there is way too much consistency there for McLaren to have a driver who maybe, although I do highly rate Van Dorn, maybe isn't quite up to speed early on in the season.
I think the two most important things for McLaren, if they are to even get fifth, is they need Van Dorn to be consistently in and around the top 10, most likely. He needs to be, 8th or 9th, I would say, consistently in and around there. And I think obviously reliability is very important. I think McLaren are going to struggle because I think they made a mistake on that car. I think they've packaged it way too tightly. Obviously, the Renault engine announcement came, I think, a bit too late for them to make a serious redesign. But one thing I will say about McLaren is, and I saw this on one of the days in testing, and I was quite worried. And obviously, we don't know the fuel loads or engine modes or anything like that, but I think Alonso was 0.2 faster than Sainz. Alonso was on hypersofts. Sainz was on mediums.
Yeah, that's true.
That's worrying.
Yeah, there's a lot. I don't know. I'm trying. I'm not bashing McLaren in the slightest. I want to see them do well. I want to see, them and Williams get their way back up the field. But I think I could see, if they don't pull it together soon, I could see McLaren going the same way as Williams.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that as well. I think if McLaren are to try and get back to where they deserve to be, which is at least fighting for race victories, they need to have a plan of where they're going. I don't think McLaren has a plan. I think what they did was they got the Renault engine and they're like, this is going to power us to a lot more successes. I don't think they have a plan of where they want to be in a certain year. Like Renault, for example, I think they set the target that they want to be going for race wins by 2020 at the latest and 2019 at the earliest. That's a plan. McLaren don't have that.
Yeah, again, I got flack in the comments to my midfield video because I said that McLaren won't be challenging Red Bull. And people say, well, hang on a minute, why are you saying they won't challenge Red Bull? Do you actually think Red Bull are the third fastest? They're clearly ahead of Ferrari, and that's a fair point. However, the fact is, McLaren came into this year saying, we want to challenge Red Bull. We have nowhere to hide. We've got the same engine as them. So inevitably, throughout the season, even if Red Bull are the dominant force and are 6 seconds clear of everybody else come Australia, the truth is everyone will compare McLaren and Red Bull because McLaren have always got such a great chassis, all in quote marks. And they're right. There's nowhere to hide for them this year. And if Red Bull blow them away with the same engine, and it's just going to show that McLaren can't build a great chassis.
I think if we get to just past Monaco and McLaren are way off Red Bull or just not really close enough to Red Bull, then I think there's some serious questions that need to be asked at McLaren. I think Alonso, if the McLaren car is still pretty much midfield, I think Alonso is going to start the long goodbye.
I still think he'll retire this year. I don't think I know pre-season it's difficult to read too much into it. There is stuff there. If you look at the data as we do constantly, Chaz, if you look through the data properly, there is stuff there to give you rough ideas on long run pace where people are. And I don't think there's been enough in testing to convince Alonso that sticking around another couple of years is really worth it.
Yeah, and as I've said before, I think the move to endurance racing was purely tactical because I think he already knew that McLaren still weren't ready for race victories or even podiums.
We said on Wednesday, didn't we, during the interactive stream that it had come out that he was considering retirement last summer. Well, to me, as I said at the time, that instantly sets alarm bells ringing. So I don't know. I still think he'll decide to go. I think he's after that Triple Crown, which is absolutely fine. It's ambition. That's great to see, but I think McLaren need to start planning for the future. Whether that's Lando Norris to come in and take his seat. I think it might be a bit too soon for him. Daniel Ricciardo's free, for example. Bottas, Raikkonen. Although I think Raikkonen will retire. But McLaren might need to go find somebody that is that good to come in and just give Van Dorn that support. But I don't know. What about Williams? Very quickly before we jump into Q&A then, Chaz. Are we selling them a little bit short this year, or are they genuinely that bad?
I'm still not quite sure. I don't think they're good, nowhere near good, but I'm not sure how bad they are. I think right now they're probably just behind Toro Rosso maybe, and quite not, I wouldn't say very comfortable, but quite a bit comfortably ahead of Alpha Sauber, but they're in so much trouble.
I think my only concern with them is you've got a young driver in Lance Stroll who's just got 1 year under his belt. Did all right last year, wasn't a million miles away from Massa. We'll not jump onto that one again. Sirotkin, as good as people say he is coming through the ranks, that's fine, but he has no F1 experience apart from a testing role at Renault and Sauber, which isn't really a huge amount of experience. And then you've got Kubica, who is massively experienced but hasn't been in the sport for 6 years. So developing that car is not going to be easy for them. And there's still a little bit of me that, maybe they have sandbagged massively through winter and they'll turn up and we'll be right in that fight for fourth. I don't see it. But there's also a bit of me that wonders if they've pretty much decided 2019 has to be the focus with the money from Sirotkin and Stroll.
I think if they start the season poorly, which I think they will, I think by the time we get to Baku, they'll be so far off the pace of what they should be. And I think they'll give up on this car very soon, probably after Spain and Monaco, honestly. I think that car, visibly, if you watch it on track, it just doesn't look like a good car. And again, still, you have Williams still talking about Kubica possibly replacing Sirotkin and Stroll if they don't perform. And I don't think that's what you need to be saying right now.
No, I think you're right there. Excuse me. We'll jump off Williams and McLaren for now. I'm sure they'll come up in Q&A in just a moment. But before we get into that, Chaz, couple of quick fire predictions then I guess we could go with. Who's going to be fastest when we arrive in Australia?
Mercedes.
Okay, yeah, I'd agree with Mercedes. I think, like I said, it will be closer than we're led to believe. Who's going to be last? Who's going to be the slowest on the grid? Not including Sauber. I'm not giving you an easy way out of that one. Sorry, mate.
Williams.
I can't disagree. Yeah, maybe Force India if they haven't got everything together for their car yet, possibly. But I think, yeah, Williams towards the back. And you've already said your surprise, because we've said sort of Haas, haven't we, for surprises. So, yeah, I'll not ask you about world champions or anything yet, because it's a little bit soon to be doing that. But we will jump into Q&A then, I guess. So, yeah, start popping your questions into chat. And joining us for the first time and making his F1 word debut, so be nice and make him feel welcome in the chat, is Ant. Are you all right, Ant? Possibly. He'll turn up. His mic's muted on Discord, so he'll turn up in a minute. So, yeah, we'll talk to him in a bit. We'll start taking your questions. So, let's have a look. There you go. Who will win the Australian Grand Prix in 2018, Chaz?
I've already kind of decided on my podium for Australia. I think Bottas will win from Hamilton, with Vettel in third.
Yeah. Do you know, I'm going to say something now. There is rain forecast for the weekend. I'm going to go Danny Rick to win in Australia.
What part of the weekend?
I've heard qualifying and rain. Qualifying and race. Of course it's going to rain. That is what I heard. So that could mix things up quite nicely. So I'm going to go Danny Rick. We have got a quick couple of super chat questions that have come in, actually. Simon Gonzalez, thank you for your contribution, mate. He says, if you had complete control over the FIA and F1, what major changes would you make? What a question. Everything. No. Go on, Chaz. I'll let you go first because I think me and Jonty did a stream on that a while ago, actually.
Where do you start? I can't answer that. It's too hard. It'd take me 10, 15 minutes just to come up with a proper answer.
I think for me, better distribution of the money. I think that would be one of the first things that would change so that the midfield teams have the budget to compete.
Yeah, that's definitely up there.
Clean up surface area that I say all the time, simpler wings so that cars can follow more closely, narrower cars so that the street circuit racing isn't quite so dull. I'd definitely come up with a better solution to head protection if it's something the drivers are still signed off on having.
But I will say that right there illustrates just how poor a job that the FIA do, that if we were in charge, we'd have so many things that we would change, we wouldn't know where to start.
That's true, yeah. I'm just thinking now about engines, and it's one of those things. I probably would, annoyingly for most people, keep the hybrids because that is kind of the way the world's going at the moment. But if there was no question mark over that whatsoever, then I probably would go back to V10s, V8s at a minimum. Maybe a V8 hybrid might work. Just something a bit louder, a bit more spectacle, better racing. Yeah, there's loads. There is loads. It's something that we'll discuss, I'm sure, during the season. Maybe we'll bring it up in the next stream as well. But if you think of anything, Chaz, do pop in and say that. But Kaylin Strimbu, he donated as well. Thank you for your contribution. He says, am I the only one who does not mind the halo? I'm over it, and it doesn't look as bad as it looked on those during its early development, does it? It's all right.
If you watch clips of the car in a pre-season testing, you can't notice it really. You're looking more at the other stuff on the car. It's already, for me, it fits. It's all good.
Yeah, you can't see the driver, which is annoying, I guess, from the helmet perspective. Maybe painting the halo in driver colours, if you like the helmet colours. The only problem with that is it stands out even more, doesn't it? So,
well, I think they should paint the halo the same colour as the car because I think it looks a lot better. Like, for example, the Ferrari halo, I think looks probably one of the best halos because it's the same colour as the car and it looks a lot more suited.
I'd agree. I think that's the best looking halo of all of them, to be honest.
Best looking
if
car.
Nothing else, just that awesome Ferrari badge on the front. How clever is that? Actually, on halos, we should say, McLaren have announced a sponsor for their halo. It is a brand of flip-flops. Bloody love them for that. That is absolutely brilliant. And I believe, from what I've read on that, all proceeds go to charity as well. So not only is it a massive meme and absolutely brilliant and a good laugh, it's also going to a good cause. So good call, McLaren. A bit of fun. We like that. Let's see if Ant has got his mic working. How are we doing, Ant? He hasn't. Yeah, we will sort this. See if we can get him on. But let's have a look at questions then. What do you think of McLaren signing a sponsorship with Flip-Flop? We've just answered that one. Yep. Did Hulk make a career mistake by moving to Renault? No. I think any driver that can get in a works team is looking good, and it's a good move.
To have the chance of winning a race or winning even a championship, the best place to go is a works team, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, I can't think of any reason not to go for it. He was only ever going to be fourth at best in the Force India. He may only be fourth at best this year, but he's got a better chance of success, hasn't he? So,
and as well, if Renault do achieve challenging for race wins by 2019 or 2020, he is in a very, very good spot. All he has to do is perform.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think now making his F1 Word debut, I think Ant sorted his problems. How you doing, mate?
Hello, everyone. Good, right? It's all sorted now. Had a few issues with my microphone, but it was okay.
That's all right. We're king of issues at the minute on the F1 Word, so you're absolutely fine. Hashtag road to 20k, Sean. Yeah, I need to hit 19k first. We slowed off this last week. I think, actually, to be honest, Jazz, I think part of that is we're getting a bit repetitive, aren't we? Because there's not really a lot to talk about now till the season gets going.
Yeah, I've noticed the interest has definitely dropped, I'd say, since the first week of testing when we got to see the new cars on track for the first time.
James Donovan, where will Perez go? Obviously, post 2018. Can you see him leaving Force India at all, Ant, or do you think he's there probably rest of his career now?
It really, I think, just depends how he does against Ocon, because if Ocon proves he's the better driver, I think Perez is going to be stuck at Force India for the rest of his career.
Yeah, Chaz?
Yeah, I think, if he loses to Ocon, I think Force India is probably where he's going to be to the end of his career. I think though, if he beats Ocon, I think he puts himself back in a position where he could get a top seat. I don't think he will, but if he beats Ocon fair and square, I think he definitely will put himself back in that question whether he can get into a top team like a Ferrari.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, if obviously Ocon's linked with that Mercedes seat heavily. Perez did beat him last year, but obviously that's Ocon's first full season. If I agree, if Perez beats him this year and Ocon hasn't got it's my first season, my first full season to hide behind, I think Perez will be seen in a different light by a lot of people. I just don't see him beating Ocon. Did get an interesting comment the other day saying that Ocon's a midfield driver and always will be. I've not laughed that hard in ages.
I will say though about Perez is if Bottas leaves and Ocon takes the Mercedes seat and Perez beats Ocon fair and square, then what does that say about Perez?
Yeah, true. Sorry, I was just staring at a question, trying to. Is Bottas going to challenge Hamilton?
For the first half of the season, yes.
He'll be closer, won't he? And if nothing else, he's got to be closer than he was last year. But I just think that's a very difficult teammate to beat for anybody.
He can't drop off like he did at the end of last season. I think it was from Italy, dropping off, and he was fighting with the likes of the Red Bulls and Raikkonen for nearly all the races after that, and he just lost touch with Hamilton and Vettel. So he needs to try and perfect that with the shout.
Yeah. James Bryder, who will score their first podium this year, Sainz or the Hulk? I'm going to say both. I've got a great shot this year.
I'm going to go Sainz because he has a very good knack of getting great results in cars or putting the car into positions where it doesn't deserve to be, which is a Fernando Alonso trait.
Yeah, it'll be sort of like a Brazil 2012-esque Hulkenberg drive.
Yeah, I mean, he's always gone well at Brazil, hasn't he? Got his pole position there in his first year, of course. Obviously mixed conditions, but he's always gone well there. So
he almost won that race in 2012, so it'd be really good for him to actually win there. And if he has the car to do it, he could very well do it this year.
He should have won there in 2012 for me. Silly mistake, but yeah, he was young then. We'll let him off it. But I think they've both got a great shot this year of getting a podium. If you're picking first one to do it, I'd probably say Sainz. But yeah, it's going to be tough for them. I know Renault are clear in fourth for me, but it's going to be tough for them to get anywhere near that top three because I think they're gone. I think they'll be absolutely. I think we've got a two-tier championship again this year, but that's fine so long as they're all close within those tiers. So, what's that only meal? Did he go offline for a second? Did I go offline for a second?
Yeah, briefly.
Briefly, okay. I'll bear that in mind. I'll just keep an eye on my internet. Will Kimi win a race in 2018?
No, can't see it happening.
The only way is if Ferrari shock us all and are on pole by half a second in Australia and continue that for the rest of the season. Then I think eventually he'll get a win. But if it's, say, the pace of the car is similar to what it was at the end of last season, in terms of where it's placed, I don't see it at all.
I think part of it depends on if Vettel finishes the race. Do you think he needs Vettel to not finish a Grand Prix to be allowed to win the race?
I'm not sure, honestly.
I just can't see. I can't see if Kimi's running first at a race and Vettel's second. I can't see them letting that play out.
It depends how competitive Red Bull are, though, in that certain situation. Because what if Vettel retires and then Raikkonen's in the lead, but then he has the two Red Bulls catching him?
True.
And they're going to go for an overtake. So, yeah.
I think it also depends on if Vettel's in the title fight as well this year.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, if he's not fighting for the title, I guess they don't need to be playing team orders, do they, as such? So, Bob Roberts, Lance Stroll, defo the first retirement of this season. Okay, I think it'll be a McLaren. I just think that's just the look. I'm not knocking them at all. That's just the look they've had this last few years and the look they had in testing. I can just see that being. Yeah, unless we have a nice big pile up in turn one, some early drama would be good.
Have like the first corner in 2002 where Ralf Schumacher hit Barrichello's rear wing.
Yeah,
that'd be a mental start.
Gonna be a wet race, and I think there could be very well a big, because there's a lot of new guys on the grid. There's Sorokin and Leclerc who have never really done a race before. And then wet conditions with new cars. But
yeah,
I think it would only happen if it's rain.
Yeah, if they let them start in the rain, that's the trouble, isn't it? Because they don't like.
I hate when they do that.
It'll be even worse. It'll be compounded for Australia. We've been waiting 4 months for racing. If they turn around and go, no, you're going to have to start behind the safety car, we're just going to be devastated. And I know they've got this new rule. A few people asking about it in chat, actually, and opinions on it. We'll come to that in a sec. I know they've got this new rule, but you want a proper start right from the off. No messing about, especially now, dare I say, now we've got the halo, unless it's Donington 93 wet, I can't see any reason why they can't just start the race under normal conditions.
It's going to be a very bad thing PR-wise if they start the race behind the safety car for, quote, safety reasons.
Yeah. What are your opinions on this new safety car restart then, Chaz? Because I think it's going to be exciting because we're going to get multiple starts potentially during the race, somewhere like Monaco, for example, but at the same time, I think it's a little bit unfair, believe it or not.
Yeah, I do. I think it's ridiculous. I hate this new rule. I don't see why this needs to be brought in. It makes no sense. I actually think sometimes a rolling restart is more exciting because cars can get a slipstream down a long straight like a Mexico or even a Spain. I don't want to see... I mean, could you imagine if we had Canada 2011 and every time the safety car came out, they had to do a restart off the line? It would... Yes, it's exciting, but it's getting ridiculous now.
Yeah. What about you, Ant? What are your thoughts on it?
I think it's going to be exciting in terms of the racing, but if you've got, let's say, Lewis Hamilton, who's absolutely dominated the race from lap 1 to, let's say, the last 5 laps when the safety car comes out and they restart, and he gets a really bad launch off the line, it's going to be heartbreaking for him, really. Just have to see how it goes.
Someone just said in the chat, and it's true, it basically makes every safety car a red flag.
Yeah. So why not just red flag it?
Exactly.
Not use the safety car, because then think of the emissions you save. That was sarcastic, by the way. I'm not doing sarcasm very well today. A couple of people asking for an explanation of the rule. Basically, the safety car will be deployed and then they'll follow the safety car around. And then when it's time for the safety car to come in, instead of them doing a rolling restart, they'll all form up on the grid in race order and then they'll do 5 lights and off we go again. So, yeah, it's basically the safety car basically becomes a prolonged warm-up lap, doesn't it? Basically, it could give us places like Russia. It could save the race, but like you say, other tracks where we get good racing anyway, it's not right. You know, I think back to Monaco. Oh, was it? I want to say 2012, but I'm probably wrong. Where they red flagged late on and they were all allowed to change tyres. 2011.
Yeah,
they were all allowed to change tyres, and that took away what was going to be a brilliant last few laps of that race. And yeah,
I think
I don't know.
it falls into a similar category of DRS. Yes, DRS makes the cars be closer, but it's a gimmick and it's not exactly fair.
Won't the race times expire the 2 hour limit if they have to stop and start? Asked Jordan. I can't say about an issue at most races, but somewhere like Singapore that could have an impact. Actually, you know, it's a good point.
Yeah, you have the French Grand Prix starts quite late. I think it starts at 3 p.m. local time.
Yeah.
If you do stops and starts, that race could go until 5:30, 6 p.m. local time.
Safety cars in Singapore, I don't see them getting because of the way through the race, because it's such a long track. It takes almost 2 minutes to complete that track. So
it is the closest race of the season to the 2 hour limit, isn't it? So if you're stopping and starting constantly through a race like that, and there will be safety cars in Singapore, yeah, it's a good point. It's a very good point. We'll take a few more then before we call it quits for Sunday Live. I can't wait for the season. I'm sorry, I get so excited. Like a kid at Christmas is a nicer one to go with. When will Sochi go away? The sooner the better. Yeah, the Russian Grand Prix. Hate that.
I've never hated a racetrack more in my life.
Stein Van Dorn, what symbolises F1 more, the Monaco Grand Prix or Ferrari?
Oh,
that's a good question.
I'd have to
They've both been there from pretty much day one, haven't they? So
I'd have to say Ferrari, to be honest, because Monaco Grand Prix, it'll make the fans happy in terms of racing, but are one of the greatest teams in F1, and I can't see Formula One without them personally. So, but I could see Formula One without the Monaco Grand Prix.
I'm not sure, honestly.
It's tricky.
They both have the pros and cons.
Yeah. I think I'd have to agree with Ant, you know, and say Ferrari.
Yeah,
Only just, you know. Monaco's very much there as